Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Hangouts and Headlines, September 12th, 2022. It's a Monday. We're pretending it's a Friday. We didn't have a very casual Friday last Friday, let's be honest. So we're having a little bit more of a casual Friday this morning, including a new feature I'm kind of toying with. Let me know how you like it. We're going to ask a poll question to start the episode just to get the juices flowing, to get everybody interested and hanging out, having fun. And our first poll question is this, should be going up right now. What's your favorite DC Universe movie? Now, we're not counting the absolutely wonderful Dark Knight trilogy. That's before the DC Universe really started to try to be a thing, when Marvel had taken over. And I did include an option here to say other. So if you do have an other, let me know what that is. Let me know what you think in the comments. And while you're getting limber, getting ready, answering poll questions, having a fun time this morning, I do want to welcome in Kurt from Uncivil Law, who might not even know that I noticed him down there because I came in so hot.
You didn't acknowledge me in any way.
I
noticed.
I did see you.
No.
It was because I showed up in the studio here, and I think it said 47 seconds.
Yes.
And I said, you know what? All right, we're just going to roll through it. Kurt, I see you. We're just going to come on in. We've done this before.
It's nice to finally felt seen. I'll tell you that.
Yes, you feel seen now. I did. I was just like, I can't get into a conversation with Kurt. We're just going to roll through this, and we'll get into a conversation live, right? Like nothing ever happens there. It's no big issue. But yeah, I'm still closing down buttons and things here because hey, it's that kind of morning. It's a Monday, folks. We're getting a little love here at the top for Wonder Woman. I don't know. Have you seen all of these that I put up here? Have you seen the DCU, Kurt?
No,
not at all.
No, I don't really watch any of these superhero movies anymore. I haven't watched any of these movies for quite a while. I watched like OG Spider-Man. I watched The Dark Knight, and I have really not watched anything of any of these universes because it just felt like so much, and I just couldn't be bothered. So, I mean, that's a hot take for you.
Yeah,
it's just an honest take, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a hot take. That's just a description of you're watching these movies. Well, let me ask you this then, Kurt, as a separate question. Comic book movies, the MCU, the DCU, which doesn't really exist, kind of suck the oxygen out of blockbuster movies. Like, if you're not watching those, are you feeling like there isn't enough fun stuff to watch in terms of the high budget blockbuster type film?
I enjoyed Maverick.
Yes, Maverick. Very
well. Is Maverick part of the DC universe? I like that one. Can I vote for Maverick as my favorite DC universe movie?
Well, it is a little bit unrealistic. It does have a comic book vibe to it. So maybe your favorite hero can be Rooster, or something along those lines. No, and Maverick is one of those that I think is actually going to be looked at by the big giant studios as, that made a lot more money than we thought. And Thor, Love and Thunder didn't, and that kind of thing. So let's
hopefully it will inspire movies that are akin to Maverick as opposed to being a Maverick cinematic universe. I'm not sure I could tolerate that either.
Well, we're definitely getting a Top Gun cinematic universe. I mean, like, there's going to be another Top Gun. I don't know how long Tom Cruise is going to keep doing it, but they're not going to. No studio on earth just said, "Wow, that was our most successful movie of all time. Let's just put that in a box and send it home." That is not happening. So we can only hope that whatever Top Gun 3 is, it is okay. But yeah, there's a couple of directions this can go, Kurt. So like, if you're a studio and you're not Paramount, you're not Skydance, and you see what Top Gun Maverick just did, what lesson are you taking from that? What kind of movies are you making? Are they all fighter jet movies? Is Hollywood going to take as the lesson what we need is dogfighting air combat movies, and we're going to have just a ridiculous.
I'm hoping the lesson that Hollywood is taking from this is that it's okay to be pro-American. It's okay to think the United States is good. It's okay to have characters who are competent.
So you chalk up some of Maverick's success here to a kind of patriotism item. Is that would you say that?
Yeah, that we are actually, as a country, okay, and it's okay to be pro-America, USA, USA.
See,
Which
it's
I
funny.
think which is a particularly appropriate message, I suppose, today. Is the anniversary of 9/11 was yesterday. It's okay to remember that the United States is a good country, and it's okay to be pro-American.
There's a giant American flag in Maverick, so I'm not going to dispute that. What I will say is, just in my head, I don't think of Maverick, and this might be because they take such careful pains to like not say what country they're in, where they're going to, all these various things. And even, I don't know if you watch, at the end of that movie, they've got a logo. Well, they've got a logo that's like nothing, but it's also kind of a few things on some of the enemy planes. And it's like, well, that's interesting. And I like that. I'm of the feeling that what people like and that the MCU has discounted at least a little bit is big damn heroes. And that's like a genre that I have talked about a lot. That's what I talked about with respect to The Last Jedi. That's what I've talked about with the MCU. And you might think, well, the MCU, Rick, has big damn heroes. And they do very often. But one of the things, oh my goodness. Early morning, Nate, the lawyer. How you doing, Nate?
Hey, good morning. I want to make sure my mic is not too hot. So,
oh no, I'll just mute you, man. It's no problem.
You got. I'm not coming in too hot because this mic is usually too hot, so I'm just concerned.
No, I don't think so. You've actually got a morning ASMR quality to you.
Yeah, there's a very
ASMR. Right. Yeah, no, but I was trying to to not come in. Hey, what's going on? To blow everybody's ears out, but all right. So now I'm ASMR. Yes. Yeah. What's going on? The boys are back in town. How you guys doing this morning?
Right.
Oh, we're having fun. Yeah. No, I was just telling Kurt. I was just telling our audience here that I skipped Casual Friday and I missed it. So what we do here, Nate, if you don't know, is we take the most casual articles and we push them to Friday, and then we talk about nonsense like comic book movies and streaming services and things like that. We talk about more serious stuff on other days. And what I did on Friday was an episode on Cloudflare and Kiwi Farms, and that became a very long conversation about policing the internet and freedom of association and freedom of speech structures and things like that. I think it was a great episode. I'm very proud of it. It was not what anyone would describe as a casual Friday.
No, it wound up being a little intense.
So that sounds like a pretty intense Friday.
Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the right to express hateful thoughts, which is a concept that is not well appreciated in our modern times, I would say.
Right. Well, the right to cut people off, but also when you're so fundamentally infrastructural, what that means and those kinds of things. And then also Cloudflare just kind of meandering about with whatever its thought process was interesting because we do messaging here. But that's not today, because I was looking at the potential articles I would cover this morning, and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling a deficit of casual. And so one of the stories I wanted to cover was Warner Brothers Discovery, speaking of floundering around, trying to figure out how to get their DC movies arm up and running, and basically, apparently, from the outside, having half of Hollywood reject them and say,
yeah, they got. Well, don't forget they have the Ezra Miller issue, they have the Amber Heard issue, and the fact that they have their whole the DCEU is a hot mess right now. Remember, so it's just how do you kind of bounce back? And you've got the $90 million Batman movie that was just shelved. You got $200 million into the Flash that your star is grooming children, in a particular way. So it's
allegedly,
it's a hot mess. Allegedly, true. Allegedly,
and allegedly, indeed. No, absolutely. Now, Nate, I asked this of Kurt. Have you watched any of these movies? I put a poll up. I was wondering what everybody's favorite DCU movie was here. Unsurprisingly for my audience, Aquaman not rating very highly. But have you watched these movies? Kurt says he has foregone all comic book movies,
pretty much,
and does not watch any of them. Which I asked him, does that mean that he will goes to theaters ever anymore, because they seem to be taking over all big budget movies? But have you watched these, Nate?
Oh yeah. Well, just look at my background for any of my shows. Yeah, I've watched every Marvel movie, every DCEU movie. I've watched them all, and I'll say this: Marvel's starting to become like DC now, but the difference between Marvel and DC was Marvel had a plan. They had a 10-year plan, and they executed that plan in phases.
Yeah.
DC came in kind of late and tried to execute the same plan, except on a 10-year time scale. They wanted to do it on a 5-year time scale, and it just didn't work out.
You're right. How do we get to Avengers as fast as possible? And it's like, well, as it turns out, the reason that works is because you have emotional investment over a series of separate movies and years. And DC's like, nah, forget it. We don't need that.
But that's because, well, if you think about it, going back, it doesn't. It's not as bad. The logic isn't as bad as I think a lot of people think who are in this comic book movie space. Because if you think about it, all the Marvel characters before the MCEU blew up, nobody knew what an Iron Man symbol looked like. No, if you put a Captain America symbol in front of people, most people just didn't recognize those characters as those standard characters. Versus Superman and Batman, who've already had these great movie careers. You have these great actors who've always had these things. So I understand DC saying, well, we don't have to kind of reintroduce these characters again because they're already big enough. The only thing we have to do is just kind of package them differently. Where I think the MCU went into this saying, we got to tell people who Iron Man is. We got to convince people who Captain America is and build that story out so people can be invested in 10 years. Where Superman, you know who Superman is. And I think the problem with DCEU is with the Batman movies, with the DCEU, like how many times we got to see Batman's parents not make it out of that alley, right? How many times we got to see
that was the problem with Spider-Man too. That was the problem with Spider-Man
like
too for the longest time. It's like, how many times do we need to have the Spider-Man origin story? How many times do I need to see the radioactive spider? Got it.
I feel very badly for Uncle Ben. I want to see it every time. What can I say?
Yeah, and the multiple different actors who play, because when you see that scene, you're like, oh my god, I got to spend 5 minutes watching the same, the same horror show again.
Yeah, there was some reason why Tom Holland skipped that, right? Although, as it turns out in the latest, that they basically just skipped all of Uncle Ben. Okay, well that's interesting. Then, do you have a favorite of? I'm limiting it to the DCU movies, and you're not allowed to use the Dark Knight. So post Dark Knight, as they try to combat.
Can I extol the virtues of Batman the animated series, or is this just completely off point at this point?
It's Casual Monday, Kurt. We can get to the animated series.
Batman the animated series is the best Batman. Fight me.
Is animated series better than the Dark Knight? That's
no, not. But the animated series is good. Just like Justice League, the animated series was really, really good too. The best DCEU movie. That's a hard one because they all are so bad. I would say Wonder Woman. Yeah, the first Wonder Woman movie probably is the best one. Yeah.
Wonder Woman is winning the poll. As we heard in trial, Amber Heard is equivalent to Christopher Pine. So that's not the same movie. Aquaman is not winning. Some votes for Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel was an interesting beginning. I don't know if it's much of a Superman movie, but I think it's an interesting beginning. And a 34% say other. Now, I picked the three most popular. So I'm curious if that's big Batman versus Superman fans. But maybe the chat will help us out here. Hoeg must hate the Suicide Squad. Hoeg actually does hate the Suicide Squad. That doesn't take away from people that like the Suicide Squad, because I get it. That kind of goofy shock horror combo thing that Gunn brought over from his horror days is not that's a vibe. And it's not mine. So I get why people like, the Starfish and the Shark Man and everything else. Go for it. You do you. It's not me. So no, I don't like the Suicide Squad. I don't like Suicide Squad. Thank you for making that easy to describe, DC. Yeah, I think my favorite is probably.
They're all still alive too, so it's a badly named squad.
No, they're
not all
still
alive.
Yeah,
okay.
they've been killed. A lot of them been killed.
Yeah, and that's one of the.
They need to complete the task.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of them are killed. That's kind of the deal. But no, it is tricky because they all have flaws. I would say probably my favorite is Aquaman. I know people are going to be upset.
Ooh, Aquaman. You're about to make the chat go wild right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Aquaman.
Aquaman was good though.
They have giant IMAX scenes of laser sharks and whatnot. I'm a sucker for that. Yeah.
You know what, Rich? What about the DC animated movies? I find to be tremendously good. Like their Suicide Squad, it's a really, really good.
I have not watched them yet, to be honest, outside of like Mask of the Phantasm from way back in the day.
You haven't watched
but
the newer stuff.
yeah, no, I haven't watched the newer stuff, but I do know it's on HBO, and people have recommended it to me. So maybe I will find some time to try one of those out. Maybe some people can give a recommendation for what, if I can only watch one, because that's the time I have afforded to me, which of the modern DC animated movies, which are all like, they're pretty short, right? They're like 90 minutes or less.
Yeah, but
I should watch.
There's one with the Suicide Squad and Reverse Flash. That's like the best one if you want to watch. But all of them are actually pretty good. I don't know what DC's doing wrong. They got to get the people who are writing like the comic book, the animated stuff, to write the scripts for the real stuff, because it's really the difference in quality of storytelling is profound between the artwork and the live action stuff. It's crazy.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Are the animated movies taking advantage of animation? Are they doing things that are weirder and wilder that you couldn't get away with in live action? Would be my only question there. Or is this just a
not really
thing?
I'm assuming with the whoever writing these scripts have a little bit more license, because again, the DCEU, you're trying to write a script to put it to, expand a larger narrative, where I think with these movies in DCEU, it's just like the animated movies. It's just like, okay, we have to tell a great story in this 2-hour time frame, and not really care about the overall 10-year model. It's just, can we tell a good story in this 2 hours? And I think by doing it that way, those stories are just better. They're just better stories.
Yeah. Well, you are not the first person to say, Rick, go watch those animated movies. So I will. I'll see if I can pick one and watch that. It does look like Wonder Woman is going to win the poll for favorite of the modern DCU movies. And to be clear, not Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, that was so bad. That was good. So bad. How could it's like, how could you make that movie? It's like, did nobody just sit down and say, this is pretty bad, we need to, we shouldn't do this movie?
Yeah. I don't know, because we were interested. We liked Wonder Woman. I remember watching it with co-counsel, and actually, like the first little bit, we were like, okay, this is interesting. We'll watch this. And then like at the end, she turns to me and says, that was really bad, right? It's like, yeah, that was really bad. Trufflehound says, Rick, the chat and Mrs. Hoeg Law have spoken. Val Kilmer Batman Forever was the best. DC needs to get Val back in the suit. I don't think that's F. Did you see Maverick? Back in the suit.
Yeah, Val Kilmer's not going to get it.
Maybe we can advance technology, and Warner Brothers can do some kind of rendered Val Kilmer that doesn't act as off-puttingly as like Leia in Rogue One. But until that day, yeah. She does love Batman Forever. You know a little something about co-counsel now. That was one of our first conversations, like our earliest days.
Is that the one with the back credit card?
That's George
Clooney. No. That's George Clooney. Yeah. Okay. No, Batman Forever was the last good Batman movie from those original movies until George Clooney messed it up. But yeah, it was, and actually it was, I think he was the best looking Batman. But I think the best Batman was what's the first guy?
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. I think Michael Keaton played like his Batman was, I think, the best.
OG Batman was pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The OG Batman. Adam West was pretty good, but I think I like Mike Keaton. I've always loved his Batman.
Michael Keaton's a good, fun actor to watch. And so the original Batman was great. I didn't like Batman Returns. It kind of goes in that.
No, I don't like Batman Returns.
I like Batman Forever. I don't like Batman and Robin. I mean, it's just how we roll.
Every other movie.
Yeah. But Batman Forever was fun. I remember that summer because it was zany, it was comic booky, and then they took it too far in Batman and Robin. I mean, like, this is the nature of Hollywood is finding something and then taking it too far. That's why I asked the question to Kurt to start out this episode. So Maverick's massively popular, Nate. You run a studio that did not just make Maverick. What lessons do you take from Maverick going crazy and there being some lack of momentum in the MCU?
Well, the MCU, and I don't think the MCU has a problem. I think Disney has a problem, and I think Disney's problem is Disney's problem. And I know people in the chat are going to go crazy, but I think Disney is trying to go woke too fast. And what I mean by that is that, yeah, but it's not. What I mean is that I think there's a natural evolution of characters, and I definitely understand. I'm all for diversity, but I think there's like a with the for instance, the example today. I'm doing a video today on the Little Mermaid. Like there's this huge backlash on the new Little Mermaid trailer. Yeah. Now, when I saw the trailer, it put me off because I'm like, the CGI is horrible. This, but we'll see where it goes.
It looked too dark.
So then it was
very dark trailer for the Little Mermaid.
Under the sea, way under.
It was so dark, and I was like, is this is this a fun movie, or is this supposed to be like, is she gonna kill people or something like that? It just didn't seam like the Little Mermaid. Yeah, so you know what? So
we bring everyone under the sea.
so I watch it, and then I go online and I see like the trailer's got like 1.2 million downvotes. Like, I don't know if you guys can get that Chrome extension where you can see downvotes, but it's got like 1.2 million. Now it's like 1.5 and like 300,000. So I'm like, and then I'm looking at the comments and everybody's talking about, they race swap, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right. And are these people, so then you see all the news articles, these people are all racist versus this is this. If you don't like it, you're a racist. So I'm like, okay, let me just ask my kids. So my daughter was sitting there with me, so I put it on.
Yeah.
And I asked them, and I did nothing. I just put it on, let them watch it, and say, hey, what do you guys think? Should we watch this new movie? The older one said, hell no. She was like, no. This is like a scary Little Mermaid. And my little one said, who the hell is that? She was like, she got, where's Ariel? That's someone else. So I'm like, it wasn't, and I don't think my two black daughters are racist against black people. They look at a character.
That's how deep the racism goes.
That's how deep the racism goes, right? But they were, when asked, they were saying it just, the look and feel of the whole thing just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel good. And Disney has been doing this with all their characters, like Snow White. They had to change her. What's it, Snow White? She was played by a Latinx character and all that stuff. So I'm thinking Disney in doing this,
right? Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, that one's not out yet, but yeah, I think so.
But I think that's the problem is that I think they've been trying to do this in a massive way. Like Hawkeye is now female, and Iron Man is now Ironheart, who's female, and then Black Panther's supposed to be now the sister, and Thor Love and Thunder. So
my understanding is that does follow what they did with the comics during like the this better than me, Nate. Is that Ironheart and Lady Thor and those things, those are all represented in comic books, right?
Of course, yeah. 110. She-Hulk and Hulk. Yes, no, 1,000%. But I think the issue is that it's like changing everything all at one time versus going back to what they did before, where they had the 10-year plan. Let's start here and let's get to here. I think you could do that when you're doing this, but I think they kind of fell into that DC trap where let's just do it all right now. And damn, the time to let people invest in these characters and understand these characters.
The 10 years was just too much. That's one of the reasons I tuned out long ago, because it's like I just can't keep dealing with these movies over and over and over and
Kurt's our resident non-comic book movie guy, but if you like them at all, 08 to 18 worked.
But Kurt, that's great for you, but they're making billions of dollars. Like, they're not making that movie for Kurt and say we want Kurt's $10. They're saying we're going to make it for the billion, like me and Hoeg was saying we went there hundreds of billions of dollars, because they're watching every single movie. Like, I'm their customer base. I don't think you're their customer base. And I think if they're writing movies for us, who are going to watch all these movies, then you can take a movie and set up an Ironheart over 2 or 3 movies. You can set up these characters over 2 or 3 movies, and then you can make.
Ironheart's going to be in Wakanda forever, right? So I mean, like, they're going to do that. Yeah. Then they're going to do their series. Then presumably they're going to have. I mean, they're setting up the new Avengers, but. I think my biggest issue with MCU right now is just the meandering nature of it. It doesn't feel like you could feel the phases. You could feel some kind of direction behind the 08 to 18 model. And this was just kind of like, here's Shang-Chi, and here's Doctor Strange, and here's Spider-Man. But it wasn't connected as much. And I think the Infinity Stones really helped them kind of stay focused in their original iteration. So it is interesting. So you think, in terms of what you'd take from Maverick, is that Disney and the MCU is going to fast in one direction, and that people should slow down and go a different direction?
Well, I think Disney. I think there's 2 issues. I think that's one, and I think the second one is their quantity over quality. Like right now, they got a show about everything. Groot's got a show. This guy's got a show. It's oversaturation of the market. Before, you had to kind of wait to kind of see, and that type of thing, and there was some anticipation built up. But now, if everybody gets a show, it's like it's so much to watch, and then if you got one bad show, that messes up for other projects that you're trying to do because they're all kind of intertwined. So that's kind of where I'm thinking they're at right now. I think they just have too much on the table. They need to contract this stuff and say, okay, what's the important stories we need to tell? And just because we can tell a story doesn't mean, nobody's asking the question, should we tell that story?
Right. And you can get overpolluted. I mean, they're still working through Disney Plus, I think. I have not been a fan of basically any of them. But I think they're still trying to figure out what the proper volume is, what the proper movement you can do in a Disney Plus show if you're not gonna see it between the movies. Like one of the things that I continue to be stunned by is you go watch Doctor Strange 2 in Multiverse of Madness, and you watch it like right next to Endgame, and I know it's pretty new, so I won't get into it too much, but like at least some character arcs don't make a damn bit of sense if you haven't seen some Disney Plus. And it's like that's a choice. You kind of have to not do that, and then you have to not move too much in your Disney Plus show. I don't envy them trying to sell me Marvel every 2 minutes, but that was them. I tried to do it, so it's a hard solve. Travelhound says the Little Mermaid trailer was dark. Fish are suspicious at the best of times. Cinematography based, right? I mean, like just in terms of this is your introduction to their live action Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid is known for being ridiculously colorful. Like you think of Under the Sea, right? Think of Under the Sea and you think of Color Pops. And this is like, we're going to do it realistically. And I think you're right. It does feel like it like the non-Disney, like that one you would find in the Blockbuster that's called The Mermaid Little. And it's like, it's got bloody fangs coming off of Little Mermaid. It's like, what is going to be part of her world? Is that kind of trailer.
We're all part of her world now.
Like, okay, maybe it's early CGI, right? I'm always reluctant to judge this stuff super early, even though they show it too early. And I'm positive there's more effects that go on because you only get the one shot of Ariel at the end of this trailer. And I don't know how to describe it. It's like they didn't have water effects on. Like she looks like she's in the stage show from Walt Disney World, which is fine in a stage show in Walt Disney World, but like you're not getting a water vibe. There's something wrong with the lighting. It's like that can all be fixed in post. I don't know. I don't know. And of course we did see, the racists come out and we know that there is a certain amount of shielding that these companies use. We saw Amazon start out with the Rings of Power and saying, we stand by our cast and all these things. And I was like, look, I've seen terrible comments. The problem is that, Rings of Power, I've watched and it's like, okay, there's a lot of money up on screen. I don't feel like you're telling me a story. And you get this this is when I was criticizing Obi-Wan too. And people were yelling at me, about, I thought Reva was terrible. And it's like, no, I think Reva is terrible. We have to be allowed to criticize these things.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I think Reva was over criticized. And I'm just
all right. You're a Reva defender. Okay.
No, well, yes, I defend the fact that I think the character was made to be that character. Like I think it was a bad character in terms of trying to convince us to fall in love with that character. I don't think that character was for anybody to fall in love with. It was.
I don't think she had motivations established very well at all.
Yes. But I think they were trying to do it like a double switch in the terms of at the end of the show, then give you her backstory at a crucial moment. But I think they didn't do it well. So I think the character was all right, but I just think the execution of the character was bad, if that makes sense.
Right, sure. Because, one of the criticisms I have in the early episodes is like, you don't feel like a Sith anything. Like you're not intimidating enough. And they're putting these speeches in your mouth. And it's like, at least at the end, you can be like, well, she wasn't a true believer. And still it's, well, okay. But the overall feel of your show is this didn't work. I know that the CGI of her running across rooftops is not her fault, but my God in heaven. So it's like, yeah, I very much didn't like Obi-Wan. So we won't go down that road again, but you had that same kind of defensiveness. In Rings of Power, it's like if people are criticizing what they did with the elves, the only criticism I have for that plot line is what is what are you doing? Why why I spend 40 minutes of my life watching this?
But you know what you're running into is the whole, if you criticize a movie that has been sufficiently woke, it's automatically it's for bad motivations, right? And,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what
this is the problem with modern Hollywood in a lot of ways, which was sort of alluding to with the whole Top Gun Maverick thing. I think that Hollywood has done the woke thing for a long time. I think that Top Gun Maverick is well received a lot because it's not that. I hope Hollywood will realize there's space for not woke and actually just make movies that people actually want to see, which apparently is Maverick, since it is unbelievably popular.
Yeah, Maverick went crazy. Maverick went absolutely crazy. And yeah, I'm not as willing to just describe Maverick's success to patriotism or a lack of politicization exactly. But I do think there's an old school big damn heroes. Let's not discuss the issues of our day. Let's do a Star Wars trench run with Tom Cruise and rockin' music. And that while that might be popcorn fluff, it is popcorn fluff that has long been missing. And one of the things I was going to say about Marvel is folks might look at that and say that's big damn hero stuff. But one of the problems I've had with Marvel for a long time is that their defensiveness of their own content is evident in every movie. That they go into the cool kids, ironic, isn't this stuff stupid pose very often. Somebody did a compilation of like the number of scenes where Marvel people make fun of the naming conventions in comic books, and like they laugh at the names in like every movie. And it's like, yeah, that's a good kind of crystallized, we need to be cool, this stuff is silly, but we're still going to have fun with it. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. The Marvel vibe is the Marvel vibe, but it is ironic and it is self-deprecating. It is not big damn heroes except for very specific sequences.
Yeah, I think Marvel changed the game when it came to superhero movies in terms of because I think a lot of people don't realize how much Marvel changed the game. Secret Identities for instance,
is one of the Iron Man is a big deal because of that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of reason why even Spider-Man got caught up into that, the whole secret identity thing and everything, because I think Marvel said we want to change the game in terms of how people think about these things and make them kind of like these real world attachments. Now Spider-Man's fighting in New York, which even in the comic books, but it gives that it's almost breaking the fourth wall almost like She-Hulk does now. But I think at the end of the day though, but I think at the end of the day now, really Maverick was successful because Maverick did something unique. It told a good damn story. Maverick told a great story, and the story is what matters. No matter who's in the movie, it's the story that's going to win the day. If you got a good story, then the movie's going to do well.
Yeah, story, plot, character still matter. Whoa.
Yeah, no, it's the truth. It's the truth. It's not the jets. It's not a lot of the aspects that people seem to be focusing on. It's when you get to the end of that movie, you're like, damn, those character arcs for like multiple people.
Yeah,
and it feels good, man. So no, I hope so. I'm worried that the lesson will be jets. People like fighter planes. We're going to get a lot of fighter planes. And or what other 30-year-old movies do we have? Labyrinth 2. Get Jennifer Connelly in there. She was in Maverick. That'll work. That'll work, Hollywood.
Labyrinth 2 could be interesting.
I like your optimism.
No, it's still funny because when I think a lot of times we don't talk about when woke is done well. Woke is done very well in some of these movies. For instance, what's the series on Amazon with the that's in the Gilded Age? I forget the name of that series, but it's really good. It's woke as shit, but it's really really fantastic. And some of the Marvel movies.
You're not thinking of the Gilded Age, are you? Because the Gilded Age is different. It's on an
No. The Gilded Age is different. It's a show on Netflix. I forgot what it's called. I'm positive most of the women in the chat probably know what show I'm talking about.
I've got a lot of Bridgertons.
Bridgerton, that's exactly the one. Bridgerton.
Okay,
I've watched my wife has maybe watched the first 2 seasons, and that's a fantastic show. It's woke as crap, but it is a fantastic show because the plot and the story is great. So I can accept woke in that instance, but I think
Now,
there's
help me
a
out
lot
here.
of times.
So help me out here, Nate, because I have to admit I'm not good with this definition so when you're saying woke, are you referring to the casting there, the themes? I've watched Bridgerton season 1. I haven't watched season 2. But like what when you say it is woke, what do you mean?
What I'm talking about when I say woke, what I'm
Yeah.
talking about is a story or a movie that is trying to do two things. Give me a great story within that context, but also give a message of diversity and showing different diverse characters in positions that were traditionally not for those characters,
Okay,
like
so
having
specifically
black
you're
people
talking
in this.
about the casting. So that like which does
The
have that
casting,
kind of colorblind casting.
yes, and but also it's the casting within certain environments. Like for
Okay.
instance, I like we're talking about England in the 1500s in the royal family, right? I wouldn't suspect there would be a lot of Hispanic or even African American people within that world or within that
With
sphere
those lordships
because
and things, yeah.
yeah, because of that time frame. But
Okay.
Bridgerton did that.
Yes.
Bridgerton did that. It added those elements to it, but it still worked within the entire story because at no point I was like, oh, this. And at first it was like, but they had a black queen, but it all worked within the context of the story. The king happened to be white. This is why the queen was black. So they were able to do it to show, okay, this can work in this particular way. But the way they purposely wrote the story for it to be an entertaining part of the story and not just something we're putting inside there to try to feed you a message. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think Bridgerton works well, and certainly for the audience that it works well for. I mean, I think it is aimed like a laser beam at its demographic, and I think it's one of their more popular shows. So I don't know. That's interesting. That's why I asked the question because in terms of theming, I don't get much politics from Bridgerton. It's a steamy soap opera type show, but I was curious. So thanks for explaining that. It definitely when you first watch that first episode, you're like, oh, okay. In terms of the casting, so that is interesting.
Yeah, I think at the like if we just think about like when we first see the queen, I'm like, oh, the queen is black and we're supposed to be in middle-aged Europe, and so there are extreme elements, but again, it all depends if it's done well. And I think another show that I love too on Amazon, what's it called? Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I don't think it's as woke, but I think it's a fantastic show. Like that's another, and people will probably be like, Nate watches so much crazy shows. Yeah, I watch everything.
Maisel.
So
my co-counsel watches Mrs. Maisel. The makers of
Mrs. Maisel is great.
Are the makers of Gilmore Girls. And Gilmore Girls has a very specific way of talking and talking about things. And I would argue that there's a fair amount of like these people being political in those shows. Yeah. But it is Miss Maisel is delightful. So. All right. We've chatted, folks. We have some articles to look at. One of the reasons I pulled these up is that it's fun because there's a merger going on. It's actually a merger that I have some stuff to do with that I can't talk about. So I like to put those out there. That's fun. But let's look at some of these articles because if you don't know, Warner Brothers, famous Warner Brothers, isn't really Warner Brothers anymore. It is Warner Brothers Discovery. I suspect most of you did know that. WBD it's the official designation here. And this happened this spring. And I just pulled up the CNBC article here just for a little bit of context. In May of last year, the company set out to merge because AT&T realizes that it can't run any businesses. For those of you that missed Sunday Ticket yesterday on DirecTV. And so AT&T said, you know what? We're a phone company, by God, and we're getting rid of everything. And so they said, anybody want Warner Brothers? And Discovery said, hey, we need content. And so Warner Brothers and Discovery got together. AT&T is keeping an ownership position, but a separate independent one, by the way. But Warner Brothers Discovery came into being, and they now control, among other things, Discovery Channel, everything Warner Brothers has ever made, CNN, HBO, Cartoon Network, their two streaming services, which will become one because running two is stupid when you're one company, and Batman, Harry Potter, Batman inclusive of everything DC Comics. So they own a lot of stuff.
That is a lot of stuff.
It's not Disney. It's not, hey, the Predator has showed up in The Simpsons, but it is a lot of stuff, which if you play video games, you might notice because their new kind of Smash Brothers-esque video game where you fight each other is actually being pretty successful. And it has Bugs Bunny fighting Velma from Scooby-Doo, fighting Arya Stark from Game of Thrones, and fighting Rick and Morty from Rick and Morty. So Warner Brothers,
hadn't realized that AT&T was giving up all control of HBO.
well, it's not all control. Again, AT&T is taking a higher level shareholder position, but they are just getting out of the business of doing the content or making any of the business decisions here. So it's being separated out. And HBO is now run by this guy, David Zaslav, who used to be the head of Discovery, is now the head of Warner Brothers Discovery. They got rid of basically everybody that was doing content on the Warner side, Jason Kilar and Sarnoff, and handed it over to this cat, who appears to be, from the outside looking in, a very efficient bean counter type person, right?
One of playing it very nicely.
Yes, I did. One of he is a headhunter dispatching with reckless abandon. So there's massive layoffs going on across the Warner Brothers Discovery. You saw him pull content from HBO Max that they own. Right? They pulled content that they actually have full rights to from their own streaming service because of other royalties in part. Who knows? Some kind of money-saving endeavor. And so he's gone through and he said, we've got to fix all of this. And one of the things that he said is we've got to fix DC because the MCU is making Disney a fortune and DC should be making a fortune as well, and we've screwed it up. So he's coming in, and this has been one of his focus projects, which is why it's gotten leaked out all over the place. These stories have happened everywhere. Here's the Hollywood Reporter as of August 25th, 2022. And we didn't cover this separately in this space, but I did read it because I like to read. People ask me about this lunch folder. Hollywood Reporter is the kind of stuff that's in that lunch folder. No, I'm not clicking on it. DC's Kevin Feige found producer Dan Lin in talks to take control of film TV for superhero arm. The move, which will see DC film presidents Walter Hamada, who, if you watched the trial that we heard with us, you saw testify, would exit, comes as new Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav seeks a reset for the brand. And famously, one of the things he basically said is, we're gonna build Marvel. We're gonna have a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
He hires Alan Horn, who I think was in retirement, but was at Disney, who helped shepherd in the 2008 Iron Man and well, no, not, it wasn't 2008. He's helped shepherd in just after that when they purchased Marvel after those first two movies, the Marvel expansion into what it became. And he says, we're going to copy it. If you're not familiar with this guy, I don't blame you, but he is really, really, really successful. Has the new head of DC been found? Or if you're the Hollywood Reporter, has the new head of DC has been found? Type editing.
But you know
where did it go?
The problem that they're going to have though is that they already have so much money tied up in projects that he was in. Like, don't forget, you had the $90 million in Batman, you got the $200 million in the Flash, you got the $200 million in Aquaman 2. These are movies that haven't even been produced yet. So and they've canned, right? They've canned at least over $100 million in projects already. So are they going to can?
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's the sticking point. It is the sticking point, and it does appear, based on their clinging to Ezra Miller, which is, he would have been ejected from most things for what he is accused of doing at this point in time. It appears that movie was one of their reset points, like really was important to what they were doing. And if you know the Flash can open up dimensions and things like that. And so it's probable, I would say, that was going to be the new jumping off point for what they were going to do. And that's why they're like, Jesus Christ. Okay. We'll have to figure out how to release this movie. But it is an unfortunate and slightly untenable position to bring in a shiny new innocent into the kind of ongoing midway done car wreck that is DC. And so you are getting this pushback. Well, in these articles that we'll take a look at, and this one, and we have another one, you will see, hey, they rumors have been abounding about this person and this person and this person and this person. And then you get other rumors that are like, this person said, get out of my office, and isn't willing to do this. Because the other aspect of this is, like I said, I'm a mergers attorney. I do corporate transactions work. This is a tumultuous time, period, right? So Warner Brothers Discovery, nobody really knows what it's going to look like, how it's going to operate, what the structure is going to be at a stable point, which is still at least like 12 or 18 months away. And so you'd have to go in, get all the wonderful promises. Anybody that's ever interviewed for a job where they really want you knows what this is like. This is like going on a date. What kind of caviar do you want, sir? And you have to try to take that with a grain of salt because you're still going to have to produce things. And this particular person, we'll see, had a very specific problem, and it's a problem that I have dealt with in transactions that I have worked with, not at this size, folks. And I thought it was really interesting to kind of point out. So just in order to talk about this guy, Dan Lin, who used to be an executive, now he's a producer, has worked on hits like Aladdin, the Lego movies, I think all of them, the It horror movies. He is in talks as of August 25th to take the role of DC chief. Multiple sources tell the Hollywood Reporter. We take them all with a grain of salt, but this is basically how Hollywood is done. This is anonymously sourced. The role would encompass overseeing not just film, but television as well. So they see a different structure for how they're going to handle DC films. The proposed structure would bypass basically all the division heads, Warner Brothers Pictures, HBO, and Warner Brothers TV, to put control of DC as a visual concept in the hands of one person. This is a good gig in terms of if you want power. This goes straight to the CEO usually, and some of the problems that have been had with DC so far is that it's had to go through all these various things. HBO Max was set up to do that Batwoman movie, and that's one of the reasons it got killed by Zaslav here, is that they said we're focusing on quality, which is a little bit of shade.
Isn't that kind of a nice thing to usually focus on?
Quality, right?
If you believe him. I mean, it's Zaslav's. There isn't any division, I think, that Zaslav hasn't looked at and said, well, we can cut 30% off of that. And so it's a question of what you believe happened with Batwoman, whether it was bad, whether it was set up for a different universe, whether they're trying to cut out some kind of tax advantage to what they're otherwise doing during this merger period. There's a whole lot of rumors about it.
Well, I think that paragraph that you just read is very telling in the sense of they're essentially trying to just copy Marvel. Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing, because that's what you have for those of you who don't know, at Disney. You have Kathleen Kennedy for Star Wars. She's the Star Wars person. You got Kevin Feige from Marvel. So they have these compartmentalized, but there's one person who runs it all for each one of their separate studios. There's a Pixar guy, there's that guy. So it seems like they've just taken that model and said, we're going to copy that model because it just makes sense. And with Marvel, you have the TV and the movie side, but it's all under Kevin Feige. And the same thing with Kathleen Kennedy for Star Wars.
Right, and it didn't start that way, right? I mean, they're trying to copy what they think are Disney's lessons. One of the really famous fights was Marvel movie versus Marvel TV. It's how you get kind of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. split between the MCU and everything else. I mean, Kevin Feige is now the king of the kingdom, but it's also magical thinking, right? It's that structure is the way to solve it. And it's like, maybe Kevin Feige was the way to solve it. I'm not positive that just unilateral totalitarian control over every aspect of your universe is definitively the way to solve it. But yeah, it's exactly right, Nate. Picked up perfectly. We're just going to copy Marvel. Walter Hamada, the current head of DC Films, would transition out of the role. A Warner's insider says that no negotiations are taking place and no official offer has been made, although other sources say the parties are discussing salary, reporting structure, and the future of Lin's prolific production company, Rideback. Now, I highlighted that in red because we will see it is where the rubber hits the road. If you've never heard of Rideback, again, I do not blame you. First of all, it's a term originating in Western cowboy culture and refers to the custom of riding back to pick up a partner who has fallen off their horse. Denotes commitment, loyalty, and support.
I've still never heard of it. This is a thing?
Rideback is a community in service of creativity. Rideback produces premium film and television content for global audiences. As a production company, Rideback supports and empowers visionary storytellers who share our passion for entertaining audiences in delightfully surprising ways. Rideback is over $5 billion worldwide. Rideback is a solution. Rideback is a promise. Rideback is an invitation. Guys, this is a marketing document. Rideback is a production company, but it's a very successful one. And it's one that this individual, Dan Lin, went out, hung his shingle, formed for himself, and has proven himself. And when you see this, and I actually remember thinking this when I read this around August 25th, it might have been a couple of days later, I said, oh, that's a sticky one. This is a sticky negotiating point of I have this thing. It is successful. I'm willing to listen to your job offer, but I'm also not willing to give up this successful thing that I probably bet my house on, right? Like that kind of discussion point has proven to be an issue in many, many transactions, including ones that I've worked on, hell, including my own life. One of my more recent interviews was like, okay, so my YouTube's pretty good. What are we going to do with that? Because I will tell you this, large law firms, not super comfortable with social media folks, or with people saying things that don't go through their press department. I said, look, I've done this a long time. I've said a lot of things. We have survived. I'm not a liability. You can trust me on this, but you have to have these conversations. And so if you have a production company that already realizes $5 billion in revenue, at least according to them, and that's not net, that's, the movies made this much money. That's mostly for the studios. What do you do with it? What do you do with it? If any deal does close, it would cap off one of the most intense executive searches in recent memory. Spoiler alert, that executive search is not capped off. Zaslav has said he was searching for Warner's own version of Kevin Feige. See, Nate, he says this to the investors.
Exactly.
The famed Marvel executive who has steered the rival comic book company's movie slate and then later its TV portfolio, transforming it into a multi-billion-dollar pop culture juggernaut. Hollywood Reporter's prone to hyperbole. This is actually true. They are a multi-billion-dollar pop culture juggernaut. This is a nigh impossible ask, but it didn't stop executives' names from surfacing. Emma Watts proved to be an early contender, while in recent months, names such as Amy Pascal, no, Matt Tolmach, Sean Bailey, and Greg Berlanti were rumored to be taking meetings, or, I love Hollywood Reporter here, or pushed by canny agency heads. They're leaked to us, but are they in talks? Who knows? Hollywood is fun to watch. You get the fact that Lynn knew Alan Horn. Like I said, Alan Horn was at Disney when Marvel really took off. Lynn is a respected producer known for his smarts. He's worked on franchises like the Robert Downey Jr. starring Sherlock Holmes, the 4 Lego movies, Stephen King's It, Aladdin, and smaller stuff. And here's the key. This actually was why I thought he really does sound like a good fit. Also does TV with that production house. And that's not the same for all of these executives. So he has worked on, I'm not saying it's good TV, folks, the Lethal Weapon show and the Walker CW show, and is currently working on Avatar: The Last Airbender. But they get multiple seasons. So that's what executives are looking for. I'm not going to lie.
Those are his resume points.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm feeling not feeling super confident.
Hey, man, if you can get TV and movies out of your production house, like that's step one. If you're trying to find a super person, is actually getting them released. DC has had some issue with that.
But the problem that DC's been having, though, is that Kevin Feige is a Marvel fan. Like, he's a huge fan of the content, and he knows like everything about he's read the comic books and things of that nature. So if you're looking for another Kevin Feige, you kind of have to get somebody who's kind of has that involvement or that understanding of the universe that you're trying to put them in charge of. If this person doesn't know that, like a lot of people don't know, Kathleen Kennedy was part of the production team of the first Star Wars movies and so forth and so forth. So you need somebody.
Her in all the Indiana Joneses. You can see pictures of her with the DeLorean and Back to the Future. She's made some of your favorite movies. There's no problem. There's no question about that.
But so that's, and even though I think she's made some huge mistakes with Star Wars, but I think that's the type of person that you really need, somebody who's kind of intimately involved in the content and that knows how to massage it and change it for the audience today. Because again, that's what works. That's what worked with Maverick. That's what worked with the MCU, and that's what I think DC needs to try to figure out.
Well, I have good news for you on that, Nate. Although not good news when we get to the next article, I suppose, and that is that Dan Lin has long said that DC Comics was his dream job. And one of the reasons Batman Lego got made was because he wanted to play in the DC universe and deal with Batman and Superman and those characters. And that was the only way he could do it with the licenses that he had. I mean, like, that's part of the background here. I don't know why the Hollywood Reporter doesn't mention those things. But like, he seems deeply invested in the DC stuff. And that's why this was all coming together. This is why it got leaked out. I think it got leaked out by his side. It's always tough to say, based on this paragraph, which is what happens to Rideback. So Rideback has a nonprofit arm and several initiatives and fellowships that aid BIPOC and rising entrepreneurs. It is unclear what would happen to Ryback, but one scenario, which is leaked, and this is the scenario that seems to favor him, so I think that's why I lean that way. According to sources, is that Warner Brothers Discovery would take some sort of stake in the company. Ryback would continue to operate as a production entity and be run by its current president. So effectively, Warner Brothers would, in theory, buy him out to avoid a conflict kind of situation, have an investment stake. It would be allowed to run, and then he would still be able to have an interest in it of some kind. These are tricky problems to solve when you're dealing with high-level executives that are successful, and these kinds of things that they have. This, we will see, falls apart and is why the deal doesn't get done by all ostensible reasons that we can see. We have here Marvel is successful, DC is not. Hamada's tenure also underscores what you described, Nate, which is that DC not the cleanest job to take right this second, which is that Hamada has found himself the subject of critical tweets from Justice League actor Ray Fisher, the Joss Whedon stuff with Justice League. I find very interesting the next sentence is effectively, though Hamada was not at DC during the production of Justice League, which seems a little bit unfair to criticize him for, Fisher accused the executive of attempting to throw Whedon as well as producer John Berg under the bus to protect Jeff Johns, another Justice League producer Fisher said enabled Whedon. That's a lot of levels of potential issues. I don't know whether Hamada is deserving of this criticism or not, but clearly it's a rough job to have, and it's a rough job to have in a merging company that is also firing people actively. And so it's a weird place to work right now in any event.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to add some context to it too. A lot of people don't understand the Joss Whedon situation, but when you're talking about the DCU, the visionary was supposed to be Zack Snyder.
Yep.
And Zack Snyder came in, he did the movie, then essentially they didn't really like what Zack Snyder did because he did like a 4-hour
the self-serious operatic DCU is what I would
say. So what they did is they essentially fired Snyder and brought in Joss Whedon, who did the Avengers movies, to essentially cut the movie down to 2 hours and make it palatable. But that movie didn't work. So now that's why you have this whole thing with Joss Whedon, because Joss Whedon actually came in and people believe messed up the DCEU from Zack Snyder's vision. But Zack Snyder's movies were, again, who's going to sit through a 4-hour superhero movie? But it seems like that's what fans wanted. So
all right, I don't know if anybody's even, we gotta ask this better. Justice League original or Snyder cut? If anybody even answers this.
I like the Snyder cut better. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know if I would be able to sit in the movie theater and watch the Snyder cut.
No, nobody could sit in the movie theater and watch that movie.
It's just too long.
Yeah. Well, what is the Snyder cut? Isn't it 4? I'm curious if anybody even votes in this poll. Oh, we have a vote. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? So this is a great point, Nate, which is the rambling DC universe didn't quite know what direction it wanted to go, thought it needed an auteur or at least somebody with a vision. I would argue that they do. Then kind of pulled up on that when they saw what was coming out of the Justice League, went with Joss Whedon. He kind of Marvelified it in a way that didn't match their previous characterizations, and cut it to death. Obviously, when Zack Snyder's working on a 4-hour movie, it's going to take some cuts to get it down into a movie theater time. And yeah, the result was not great, Bob, as they say. But yeah, out of Joss Whedon coming in, undoubtedly under deadlines and pressure, certainly, is that Ray Fisher and Gal Gadot, I believe, made complaints about Joss Whedon, and then that led into additional complaints about the treatment of people on Buffy and Angel, where Joss Whedon became famous, and that became a whole thing. Now, I don't know how Walter Hamada gets dragged into it exactly. I don't think this paragraph does a great job of explaining how that happened. But yes, Joss Whedon wound up from that job losing a lot of street cred. I don't know what he's doing now, if anything. So yeah, Joss Whedon was one of the really put on a pillar type writers and showrunners after Buffy and Angel, and he's executive producer of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for Marvel. He obviously did the 2 Avengers movies. I think he remains as executive producer for at least a time for them because of the work he did on Avengers. And now he's effectively persona non grata in certain important ways. I know she says it's Gal Dot, but I can't ever remember that. It looks like Gal Gadot. It still looks like Gadot. We're waiting for Gadot. We can't settle for Gadot. I'm sorry. That
nice. That's good.
Very casual Monday.
Very nice.
The Watchmen was about 4 hours long. A superhero movie being that long and successful is unheard of. Not in the theaters. It wasn't. I don't know what version you watched, but The Watchmen was shorter when it was in theaters. Better in longer versions. I mean, that's the thing. I think basically every time you have these massive cuts to make sure you can get cheeks and seats, it's better when you actually allow the script or the director's division. Even Batman versus Superman is greatly improved by the director's cut, where then plot points make sense, which is nice. It's a nice thing to have happen when you're watching a movie. But
for the plot to make sense, that is nice.
Well, they cut this stuff out, right? So I just watched Jurassic Park Dominion, for instance. Oh, Nate
I've heard it sucks.
Well, it does, but in terms of whether or not one version is better than the other, the extended edition that they released on home video recently is significantly better. In the theatrical version, they cut out like 3 scenes that explain characters and motivation. And I get this. If I'm the studio, I probably think my audience is here for giant dinosaurs fighting things and cool pictures. They probably are. But at least the minimal level, you need to understand what that crazy dude is doing. Right? Like, why is he doing what he's doing at all? And so the extended edition is better. It's still not.
And why is the dinosaur doing what it's doing? What is its motivation? Does it not feel? Does it not love?
See, if you want to get into the heads of dinosaurs, you could. I'm sure Pixar's got a movie in the works that will hopefully be better than The Good Dinosaur. But all I'm saying is that you do get these issues where the director's cuts are almost always better if the cuts were made solely to try to get into a window to get more movie showings. And that's true for Batman versus Superman. That's true for Jurassic World Dominion. Not strong movies like in their bones, but better with context for character motivation, which seems to be the first on the chopping block when the studios start looking to cut time. Let's finish up with these 2 articles here. We've done a reset. We think we can build a much stronger sustainable growth business out of DC, says Zaslav. That's how he talks. He's a very financially oriented person. As part of that, we're going to focus on quality. Hey, that's the right thing to say. We are not going to release any film before it's ready. DC is something we can make better. Dealing with all the Aquaman stuff, dealing with all this stuff. And so, honestly, I read this article and said, I'm still not sold on the one-person model necessarily, because I think Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy are just the perfect examples. Disney tried to run the same model twice, and you can see how it goes. There aren't any Star Wars movies on the horizon, maybe ever again, because of how that went. And on the opposite side, we are so doused in Marvel, it might be losing speed purely because we feel like we can get Marvel content every minute of every day. And so in that capacity, looking at this, I said, and then this article came out. Lego movie producer Dan Lin won't take DC film and TV chief role at Warner Brothers. And again, this, by the time you hit the Hollywood Reporter, I know that there are sources that say they're not even in talks. That's BS. This is a big deal. This is the kind of thing that causes you to a major setback. Look, he's posing next to Lego Batman there. Movie producer Dan Lin, who had been in talks to become head of Warner Brothers Discovery, DC Comics film and TV unit, won't take the job after all, according to people familiar with the matter. Note the language here, by the way. And again, this might be his team leaking this stuff. This is very specific. This is the active verb is he won't take the job. Not that deals fell apart, not that DC moved a different direction. He won't take it. The 2 sides ended negotiations without reaching a deal. The news comes during a tumultuous time for the newly formed Warner Brothers Discovery. CEO David Zaslav has been attempting to remake Warner Media after merging it with Discovery in April, including layoffs and content eliminations from streaming service HBO Max. Shares are down about 50% since the merger closed. That's not what you're looking for, folks. When you make a big new merger, this is not what you're looking for.
No.
Not a lot of faith. Not a lot of faith in the market. Now, I will say this. The market is a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
So you have to actually take it with that grain of salt as well. You can't just pluck a company out from looking at these things, but certainly you don't want this is not the angle you want this to be at. And so Warner Brothers Discovery having been a difficulty, the market doesn't necessarily believe in it, doesn't believe in Discovery Head, doesn't believe in Discovery Plus times HBO, doesn't believe in a lot of these things, but they could be wrong. The market is stupid. So we will see. Warner Brothers is in a tumultuous time. I like that description from CNBC. After discussing a potential offer from Warner Brothers, Lin has decided to stay at Rideback, the film and television company he founded and runs. It's a good gig, folks. The people said who asked not to be named because the talks were private. He's produced some big films. We looked at that already. Contract discussions ran into complications because of Lin's ownership of Rideback and how Warner Brothers Discovery would compensate him for it. Two of the people said the two sides exchanged term sheets. Lin wanted to keep Rideback operational with an equity stake owned by Warner Brothers. Remember, that's exactly the description we got in the Hollywood Reporter. That's suggestive of his team to me. One of the people said both parties decided to move on after negotiations bogged down. So it's Rideback. And this is a common issue. What do you do with what other assets, what other interests people have if you want them to come into your company? It happens at this level for millions and millions of dollars. It happens at the executive level for tech companies. And it clearly broke down here. And I don't know the answer. Was Warner Brothers lowballing him on Rideback? Did they refuse to take that interest? Did they want him to be totally committed to them and to skip all interest in his company? We'll never know. That'll never come out. But it's interesting because they were once again seemingly at square one with other things coming out of these articles, such as Watts refusing to take the job that was apparently offered to her, at least as described by CNBC, and that Zaslav, in order to just kind of put that in the wound, if you will, he personally met with Lin in his attempt to convince him to take the job. So this isn't a fly-by-night. You heard it described as exchanging term sheets before. The CEO came and said, come on, this is going to be a big deal. When the CEO flies in and doesn't get it and gets a CNBC headline like we're looking at today, that's a total fail. That is exactly what you don't want to have happen if you're worried about the DC universe and if you're worried about Warner Brothers. Regardless of how you feel about this individual, it doesn't mean it won't work out better. You never know. Anybody that follows sports knows that you go after the head coach you want and maybe you don't get him and maybe you get somebody better accidentally. But it is a setback for Warner Brothers. It's a setback for DC. And it seems like the stories about DC are basically only setbacks for as long as they've been trying to compete with Marvel. And I hope that changes. Batman and Superman are cool. Marvel needs a competitor, God knows, because they are floundering. I hope that Warner Brothers finds somebody palatable for them on this, because otherwise we're missing out on possible good movies like The Dark Knight. So, all right, that's what we've got. The share price is just stunning to me. What does everybody else think? Comments, questions, casual Monday. Nate, Kurt, what do you think on any of this?
Well, I think it's just the cycle in the market, because I think people fail to realize before Marvel blew up, DC was the only game in town. Remember the three Superman movies? Remember the original Batman movie? The only superhero movie we were getting were DC movies, right?
Just really staticky.
Fox's X-Men and Blade.
I was just asking. Is Nate really staticky?
Nate is very staticky. I don't know why.
Sorry, let me switch my. Sorry about that.
We like to just add a little snap, crackle, and pop in the morning. Yeah. Kellogg's is, of course, a Michigan company. Enjoy it today.
It's also the fourth, fifth, and sixth derivatives of speed.
I don't think I understand that reference.
Velocity? No, it's physics. In physics, there's velocity, acceleration, jerk, snap, crackle, pop.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully,
I made a physics joke.
Okay,
at
all right.
7:40 in the morning.
I didn't recognize it.
Okay, no problem.
I did not recognize it.
I'm happy to help.
All right, Nate, back?
Physics in the morning. Yeah, you guys. What? I don't know. Am I better now? You guys can hear me?
You are better. Yeah.
All right. No. What I'm saying is that really the best movies or the only game in town was DC. I know you mentioned X-Men and some other Marvel movies, but essentially they weren't even really made by Marvel. Weren't they made by by discovered by Warner Brothers. So it's
Marvel opened up their internal studio with Iron Man. Yeah.
Yes. So what I'm suggesting is that I think DC had this thing on the market. They were making all the movies. They got complacent and just kept putting out movies just to see if they can make money. That has died out. And now Marvel I think has their success is now coming to an end in this term until you can, change not only the way you're thinking.
And we have completely lost Nate.
Sorry,
that was
Nate.
fun.
Sorry, Nate. I apologize. We did lose you. It did sound like you were in a suspense thriller, and you dropped the line as the terrorists came and kidnapped you.
I'm sorry.
You're back. Good. All right. No problem. No, I think you make a good point. I think you make the best point, which is one of the points we make in Virtual Legality all the time when we're talking about antitrust and market shares and things like that, which is there is a season. There is a season. There really is. And you cannot take these things as static. There is a dynamism in all markets, certainly entertainment, certainly technology. And Nate is absolutely right. It seems when you're in it, like Marvel will never die. Like we'll just have Marvel movies in 4 spots every year until we die. And that's unlikely to be the case, right? Hollywood has entire genres that have died, right? The cowboy Western of the 1950s dominated all media and then didn't. Maybe it will be the same with the MCU. Maybe it will be the same with comic book movies. Maybe we're really into, I don't know, what would we be into next? I'm really worried it's going to be jet fighter movies. Nate's coming back.
I just hope that if it's pro-America, it doesn't inevitably get described as jingoism, because that always irritates me a little bit. When you have these articles discussing Maverick, it's like, oh, it's just jingoism. I'm like, get lost. Just because we want to think that America isn't like the worst country on the face of the earth does not make it jingoistic, jerks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hadn't seen any kind of commentary on that with respect to Maverick, but yeah, I who knows what it'll be. Westerns will make a comeback, says RJH. Look at Yellowstone. Yep, Yellowstone's very, very, very popular. Yellowstone's fun. Is Nate calling in from Nakatomi Plaza? Yeah, welcome to the party, pal. Please no more live act tunes. I haven't heard that in the description. It's a good reference. It's a good reference. Let's see what else we got here. I'm disappointed that we didn't get an X-Men announcement. Yeah, it looks like X-Men's after Fantastic Four, which is unknown, question mark. Who thought making Joker a musical was a good idea? I don't know.
There's a Joker musical?
Apparently Joker 2, which is the sequel to
Electric Boogaloo, the musical?
Yeah. Well, they cast Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, I believe, and they're going to make it a musical movie.
Okay. That could be interesting on a lot of levels.
I'm sure it'll be interesting. I don't know if it'll be successful. I also don't know if Nate actually has a microphone, but we'll keep his picture up here.
Yes, we do like looking at him.
All right, let's see here. Okay, well, I think we're basically done for today, folks. It does look like Snyder Cut has won out in the second poll. Kurt, it looks like you've got something going on. If you shoot me a link, I might be able to hit these buttons properly to have a direct redirect.
Yes.
As I pull up these menus. But why don't you tell people what's going on your channel, and I will see what I can do.
Yes. Well, as always, I've got lots of interesting coverage on my channel. I'm going to be posting a link right now for a U.S. Supreme Court case that I've been sitting on. So immediately following the stream, if the redirect thing works,
you never know. It's YouTube, folks.
You never know for sure. We'll be talking about this case called Babcock versus Kaczynski, which dealt with military technician who was trying to get retirement benefits under the Social Security Act. So it's a U.S. Supreme Court case dealing with when is a civilian, when are you military? Because he's in this sort of hybrid status where he's kind of both. And the U.S. Supreme Court has to determine whether or not he's civilian or military for the purposes of retirement benefits. Exciting and fun.
You got a deep dive. Sorry, my hopefully I'm on my computer now, so things I should be sounding a little bit better.
All right, and yours isn't coming up, Kurt.
Well, try now.
Okay. Little behind the scenes action here.
Yeah, I know. It's
Oh.
super
YouTube-
exciting behind the scenes action.
YouTube doesn't love to do what it says it can do.
No,
just
it's
keep
not.
searching for these things.
It needs work.
All right. It doesn't look like it's going to take this right now, Kurt, but maybe we can check on our buttons otherwise, and you can make sure you're accepting them from me.
Let me see. All right, let me go into my settings and see if he's approved as a
redirect.
You gotta like check these things, man. It's such a pain in the butt.
The redirect is good, but sometimes it's wonky. So, but
It is. It's not the cleanest piece of code, as I like to say on this stuff. But no, it'll get better. You know, you want to talk about competition? Redirect exists, I think, because it was a common Twitch feature. And so you know
they could do it just as well as that. That'd be helpful as I stall trying to find where the right setting is to authorize Nick.
While Kurt tries to find those buttons, what are you up to today or elsewise this week?
I'm covering a couple of stories. I'm doing the Ariel story because I asked my kids, so I wanted to do that one. I'm also doing what's the other story I'm doing? There's another story. I'm covering a couple of. I'm doing the Trump story, which is Get Me Killed. But
Mar-a-Lago, just generally.
Yeah, but I love that. I'm just fascinated in the legal aspects of the search and all that stuff because that's what I used to do, you know. So that's interesting, and I'm also
sure
going back.
I'm sure the chat doesn't get at all ridiculous about that.
Yeah, it gets pretty spicy. It gets very spicy. I think it's funny. No matter what I say, I'm called an idiot. If I say it's good, I'm an idiot. If I say it's bad, I'm an idiot. If I say I don't know, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot no matter what you think. But I said, you know, I'll just go into it. And the last thing I think it's a very interesting story that's coming out now is that there were some leaked emails from the Amber Heard PR team, and one of those leaked emails suggests that the NBC reporter Kat Tannenbridge, the one who's been
Tenbarge, yes,
Tenbarge, whatever.
She has a lot of thoughts about Hoeg Law, definitely.
But though in those emails, it suggests that she was part of a campaign to quote misrepresent the facts to help Amber. So she's mentioned in these emails. So I was going to cover that, whether the emails are good, whether they're actual leaks. They're being reported by this site that's been up since '95. So we'll see. But I just thought it was a fascinating story. And it's interesting. The most interesting part about that story is if you look at her tweets, like the way the emails have come out, if you look at her tweets are kind of exactly what the email's saying. You know, change the narrative at this time. Like it literally, when you look at the emails and then look at her tweets, it seems like this was the plan. But again, you know, it's all speculation unless we really know something. So
of course. See. Well, that sounds interesting, Nate. Absolutely. All right, Kurt, I did my best. I don't know if it took or not.
We'll find out, I suppose.
It is
we'll
5 seconds.
As we learn these things the hard way.
In any event, thank you, gentlemen, so much for hanging out with me so early in the morning. Thank you, chat. Thank you, everybody else. We do have, I think, a couple of these I want to get. Carrie Hoeg with the phenomenal success of Maverick. Do we know what happened with the Top Gun Maverick lawsuit? It was stalled. It's going to ultimately be a loser. I said it was going to be a loser when we talked about it. But it has been countered by Paramount/Skydance as uncopyrightable real-world elements has been, I think, their major defense. Of that particular situation. I think they're right. So I don't expect that to stop anything. Honestly, it was a big leverage threat. Nobody wanted that movie to come out of theaters or to not be sold because that's how they get paid in any event. So yeah.
You can't copyright The Danger Zone or The Highway there too.
Kenny Loggins has different thoughts. Trufflehound, maybe DC can join Lawyers and Dragons and bring our heroes to the big screen. That'll give them a bump in rating for sure. That's right. We can bring our crazy, somewhat circuitous questing over to the DC universe. That would be fantastic. Nate, we haven't seen you on Lawyers and Dragons yet. You have any interest?
I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons for so long, so I don't want to embarrass myself.
I only bring on people that don't have any experience, except for Kurt, who rolls in and is ready to go. No, all right. Well,
I would love to. Yeah, I'd love to join. I feel like, but my experience is really, really light from like when I was like 10 or 12 or something like that. So
yeah,
I'm coming into it almost like a new baby. So
no, that's exactly right. That's how most of us came in. Rob and Alita in particular had utterly no experience. Ian's our ringer. and I had played back in high school. So,
and I'm just so happy to see all y'all.
yeah, that's Blackleaf. It's right there. It's the happiest you've ever seen Kurt. I love it. In any event, all right. Well, we got some stuff coming up. I'll be in touch. In any event, thank you everybody for joining us today. Have a wonderful Monday. I hope this was a casual, fun way to start your week. Please do check out Kurt on Civil Law. You might be sent there, you might not. Please do check out Nate and everything that he's doing. Sounds like he's got some spicy stuff happening on his channel that I'm sure a lot of people have very well informed takes on at all times. And everybody else, I will see you tomorrow on Hangouts and Headlines. Might do a virtual legality otherwise today. And thank you so much. See you very soon.